Chosen one, this is not paranoia. This is not a dream. This is divine revelation. Something was said behind closed doors, and heaven heard it first. They thought you were powerless. They thought no one would ever find out. But the veil is lifting, and the hidden is being dragged into the light. There was a meeting. A real one, not spiritual, not symbolic, but physical, in a dim room. Behind locked doors, they sat around a table and planned your downfall like a project. Your name was spoken with. Venom. Your purpose dissected with surgical coldness. They mapped out your destruction. Like engineers of chaos. This wasn't just gossip. This wasn't frustration. This was warfare. They spoke of manipulating your image, of stealing your credit, of flipping your allies, of twisting truth until you looked like the villain in your own story. They wanted to dismantle you silently, not with fists, but with rumors, with influence, with carefully planted seeds of doubt. But here's what they didn't expect. Stranger was present, not invited, not noticed, someone who wasn't meant to hear, heard everything. They thought it was just another casual takedown. They laughed, they joked, they played God in your life, but the real God was already watching. This wasn't just a meeting. This was the moment heaven flipped the script. The witness didn't speak right away. They wrestled with fear, with uncertainty. Should they stay silent and walk away, or step into the light and expose the darkness? And then something shifted. A weight, a divine nudge, a holy discomfort that wouldn't leave them alone, because it wasn't just your name they were attacking, it was your calling, your legacy, your assignment. They weren't just breaking your reputation. They were trying to intercept what God ordained, and heaven doesn't stay silent when a chosen one is targeted. The witness picked up the phone, the police were notified, and the whispers that were meant to be buried, have now become evidence. This wasn't just overheard, it was intercepted by divine timing. Chosen one, do you understand? This exposure was not random, it was not luck, it was not coincidence, it was justice on a timer, and the timer just ran out. The very words they used to destroy. You are now the same words that will sentence them, because what they didn't know is that when you target someone marked by God, you don't just start drama, you start judgment. They thought it was just you, but it was never just you, it was heaven's investment, it was divine property, it was sacred ground, and no one trespasses. Holy territory without consequence. The walls are closing in now. Investigations have started. Records are being pulled. Truth is being extracted, like gold from the dirt, and nothing will stay hidden for long. God is not mocked. What they planted in darkness, they will now reap in full daylight. You were never unprotected. You were never abandoned. Heaven's eyes were always on you, even in the silence. Let this be your soul's declaration. I am not a victim of schemes. I am a vessel of justice. Chosen one. There was someone else in the room, not a conspirator, not a friend, just present, unnoticed, uninvited, unplanned, and yet perfectly positioned by God. They were not meant to hear it, but heaven meant for them to be there. At first shock, there, heart pounded in their chest as your name was spit out like poison. They listened frozen. Disbelief gripped them like a cold hand on the throat. How could people speak so casually, so strategically, about destroying another soul? You, the one they worked beside, the one who always moved with kindness, the one who held light in your eyes, a light they tried so hard to dim. But this wasn't just workplace drama. This wasn't jealousy, it was coordinated, surgical, and dark. Something about it didn't just feel wrong. It felt unclean that the witness sat there, pretending not to notice, silent, still, but something spiritual was stirring within them. They weren't a hero. They weren't looking to get involved, but they couldn't unhear what they'd heard. And your name kept echoing in their mind like a sacred alarm bell, over and over. Over and over, it wouldn't stop. And that's when the wrestling began. Do I speak? What if I'm wrong? What if they come after me? They paced. They prayed. They tried to shake it off, but conviction pressed on them like divine weight. They didn't ask for this moment, but now they were the moment. God had handed them a holy choice: stay silent and the darkness move forward, or speak and let the light break in. The witness understood this wasn't just about you anymore. This was about what's right. This was about conscience. This was about truth. And so they picked up the phone. Not just a phone call, a spiritual detonation. The moment that single dial tone echoed, the entire atmosphere shifted. What was once hidden in shadows now had a spotlight on it. The scheme wasn't just heard by one person anymore. It was on official record, filed, documented, escalated. This wasn't just an anonymous tip. This was divine intervention. And from that moment forward, the entire trajectory changed. Heaven didn't need armies. It needed one soul to obey. One person to say, this is not right. One witness to say, I will not stay quiet. That obedience? It shattered timelines. It ruined their illusion of invincibility. It was the very thing they couldn't prepare for integrity. Because no matter how careful they were, no matter how many locks were on the door, no matter how many lies they rehearsed, they never planned for one thing yet. Witness with a conscience. And so now the dominoes have begun to fall. Your name is no longer alone. It is backed by testimony. That is reinforced by truth. That is held in divine memory. And now, human evidence. Let this be your soul's declaration. God placed a witness in the room for my protection. Chosen one. They thought they were gods in the dark, moving like phantoms, untouched by consequence. But no, the silence they once trusted has turned against them. The air in their secret rooms is different. Now, thicker, heavier, unsettling, something is off, and they feel it. A glance lingers too long. Phone call isn't returned. A meeting is canceled without reason. And then it begins. Who talked? Who was listening? Who betrayed us? They used to laugh together, confident in their circle of secrecy. But now every smirk hides suspicion. Eyes dart. Hands tremble. Trust gone. One of them begins wiping messages. Another deletes an old email chain. One quietly smashes a hard drive. Another rehearses a new version of events, just in case they're questioned. But the truth, chosen one. The truth already left the room the moment they spoke your name. This wasn't just panic. This was prophetic collapse. Because the walls have already cracked, and their fortress of lies is no longer safe. You see, darkness is bold until it smells exposure. And now they're choking on the scent of their own fear. This wasn't just regret. This was reckoning. They start calling one another, but the tone has changed. No more camaraderie. No more jokes. Just silence and paranoia. Did you say something? Did someone see us? Was that room really private? They double-check doors, speak in whispers, avoid eye contact at work. Their steps are faster. Their nights are restless. The most dangerous among them, the one who led the charge, starts sweating through meetings. He used to be the puppet master. Now he's watching his strings unravel. They never expected resistance, never thought anyone would speak. Because in their mind, you were weak, you were alone, you were already defeated. But they miscalculated. They didn't count on the divine. Now, the police are watching. Heaven is watching. And worst of all, their own fear is watching them. They're rehearsing alibis in their heads. But it's too late. They're crafting new stories. But the evidence is already written. They're trying to get ahead of the truth. but the truth has already arrived. See, chosen one? The moment they turned on you, the clock started ticking, and the countdown was never in their control. Their downfall wasn't a possibility, it was a prophecy. And now, they know, even if they don't say it out loud, even if they keep pretending something inside them whispers, we've gone too far. Let this truth ring in your soul. No weapon formed against me will prosper, because they're falling on their own swords. Chosen one. You didn't know what was said behind your back. You didn't hear the whispers. You weren't in that secret room, but something in your spirit shifted. You couldn't explain it, but you felt it. A holy unease rising in your chest. The air changed. The atmosphere thickened, and suddenly, your soul grew alert. You couldn't sleep like before. You found yourself praying, without knowing why. You felt eyes that weren't there, and pressure you couldn't place. That wasn't paranoia. That was spiritual radar. That was the whisper of heaven saying, be still. Something is being moved on your behalf. And in that stillness, you didn't panic. You didn't chase clarity. You dropped to your knees. You opened your mouth and began to pray. Not from fear, but from alignment. Not to beg, but to agree with what God was already doing behind the veil. Because deep down, your soul knew something your mind hadn't caught up to yet. This battle wasn't yours to fight. They plotted. They lied. They slandered. They schemed. And still, you stood in peace. Because heaven had already drawn its sword. Because angels had already been dispatched. Because justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it arrives in silence. And in that silence, God moved. He touched the mind of a stranger. He stirred the conscience of a witness. He aligned the perfect timing for truth to collide with evidence. You didn't have to lift a finger. Because while they were gathering to tear you down, heaven was building your vindication. This wasn't just spiritual. This was judicial. This was generational. This was prophetic compensation. What they spoke in darkness, God exposed in light. What they built in secret, God dismantled in public. And you didn't have to defend yourself. You didn't have to retaliate. You didn't have to clear your name. Because God already cleared it. You sat in silence. But that silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. It was the hush before heaven's thunder. And when the call was made, when the report was filed, when the whispers turned into consequences, you knew. You felt it. Like fresh wind through your chest, like a weight lifting off your shoulders, like a peace that made no sense in the natural. That was the moment heaven answered. That was divine justice, dressed in quiet power. Let the world wonder why you're not reacting. Let them whisper why you're not fighting back. Because while they scramble, you're resting. While they unravel, you're rising. This wasn't just a defense. This was a declaration. Touch not mine anointed, and do my prophets no harm. Psalm 105-15. You are not protected because you're lucky. You are protected because you're marked. So take this truth, chosen one, and anchor it to your spirit. When heaven fights for me, no enemy can win. Chosen one, the day came not with thunder, but with a tremble, not with noise, but with a crack. Because sometimes truth doesn't shout, it leaks. And the first leak? A trembling voice. A shaken soul. One of them finally cracked. They thought they were strong. They thought they were untouchable. But pressure is prophetic. It separates stone from sand. It exposes what the masks were hiding. And under that divine pressure, one of them broke. They couldn't carry the weight of what they knew anymore. The guilt was loud. The fear was louder. And the conviction? Divine. Because it wasn't just human guilt. Was the whisper of God echoing through their bones. What you've hidden in darkness, I will expose in light. And just like that, the dam burst. The secret spilled, like oil on marble, unstoppable. slippery, impossible to clean up. They named names, dates, locations, they gave it all up, and when that first confession hit the table, panic swept through the rest like wildfire. Loyalty? Gone. Unity? Gone. Now it was every man for himself. One by one they flipped. One by one they sang. One by one they exposed each other in desperation to save their own skin. What once was a secret brotherhood of silence became a house of mirrors. Every wall reflecting guilt, every glance laced with betrayal. This wasn't just a breakdown, it was a divine collapse. A holy implosion designed by heaven, because when God allows truth to rise, no scheme can stand. The authorities didn't have to dig anymore, they just had to listen. The conspirators wrote the case file themselves. Every whispered threat, every malicious text, every fake smile hiding a loaded dagger now cataloged, signed, time-stamped, an undeniable they told on themselves. Not under torture, not under trickery, but under divine fire, because even the most secret sinner cannot outrun the echo of righteousness. Do you remember when they laughed, chosen one? When they mocked your name? When they called you paranoid or dramatic? That laugh has now turned into a plea for mercy. You didn't expose them. Truth did. You didn't fight them, light did, because this was never about revenge. It was about divine order reclaiming its space. It was about heaven saying, enough. And now everything they whispered is on record. Everything they plotted is on paper. What was once rumor is now evidence. What was once gossip is now proof. This wasn't just confession. This was the collapse of a kingdom built on lies. And while they weep behind closed doors, you're rising with clean hands. While they scramble for damage control, you're standing in devouring alignment. Because vindication doesn't come from shouting. It comes from obedience. And you obeyed. You didn't curse them. You outlasted them. And now the world will see what God always knew. Your name was never the problem. Your light was the threat. Take this and seal it in your soul. What they tried to bury has now become the proof of who I truly am. Chosen one, this was never just about you. This was divine justice putting on its robe. And when heaven stands, every knee bends. The day came. The courtroom was silent. No more whispers. No more shadows. No more manipulation. The judge entered not just with human authority, but under divine timing. And the moment their names were called, the atmosphere shifted. You weren't even in the room, but your name hovered, not as the accused, but as the reason truth had to rise. They sat at the table of judgment with eyes hollow, fingers twitching, hearts pounding in dread. Because now, every fake story they ever told was about to be judged not by rumor, but by reality. The evidence was overwhelming. The confessions undeniable. The patterns too perfect to ignore. And when the judge read the verdict, the silence cracked. Guilty. One word. One sound. One divine echo that shattered years of control, deceit, and corruption. Guilty of betrayal. Guilty of conspiracy. Guilty of trying to destroy a soul heaven had marked. Chosen one, they didn't just plot against you. They went to war with your destiny. And that war always ends the same way. Heaven wins, their careers, gone. Their reputations, burned. Their future, caged, because you cannot build success on the bones of the righteous. You cannot harvest fruit from seeds of manipulation. And you stood through the fire. You walked through false accusation. You endured isolation. You prayed through the silence. And now, you are vindicated. Not by revenge, not by retaliation, but by revelation. Because when God clears your name, He clears it in front of every eye that doubted you. The news spread fast. What was once private became public. What was once suspicion became sentence. And the same mouths that mocked Speak your story with reverence. You didn't have to. Fight. God fought. You didn't have to expose. Heaven unveiled. You didn't have to curse. The curse boomeranged. And now the people see it. You were never the villain. You were the vessel, the one carrying light through enemy territory, the one heaven trusted to walk through the trap without falling into it. So let the dust settle. Let the names fade. Let the courtroom doors close. Because what matters, not just that they fell, but that you're still standing. Not bitter, not broken, but blessed and branded by fire. Chosen one. This was not your punishment. This was your purification. Your name has been washed clean, not by water, but by truth. Let this be the decree that seals this moment. I did not collapse in the storm. I was crowned in it. Chosen one, the one they tried to destroy, becomes the witness of divine Jejusti. They thought they buried you, but they didn't know you were a seed, a sacred one, not buried, but planted. Not forgotten, but preserved in the dark for an appointed time. Not destroyed, but divinely hidden until justice had its say. This wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of theirs. Because when the gavel of divine justice struck the table of heaven, it wasn't just for punishment, it was for revelation. You, the one they mocked. You, the one they doubted. You, the one they whispered about behind closed doors. You were the divine witness. They planned to erase you, but God chose to exalt you. And in the courtroom of both heaven and earth, your name rose while others collapsed under the weight of their lies. They wanted to reduce you to a rumor, but the rumor became a revelation. They wanted your light to go dim, but your silence became a storm that shook everything. Hidden loose, they didn't just fail to defeat you, they exposed themselves in trying. Because chosen one, you didn't need revenge. You stood still, and divine retribution arrived in robes of fire and truth. While they panicked, you prayed. While they erased evidence, you elevated in peace. While they feared exposure, you walked boldly in the open. You didn't lift a finger, because heaven lifted the entire case. And when the world asked, how did they survive that? The answer was not strategy, not power, not privilege, was divine alignment. It was the hand of the Most High wrapping around your destiny and saying, no man can touch what I have ordained. This wasn't just survival. This was spiritual testimony. The evidence of God's justice wasn't only found in police files or courtrooms. It was found in your breath, still steady. In your voice, still strong. In your presence, still sacred. Every lie they told became a stone beneath your feet. Every trap they set became the scaffold for your platform. Every whisper became an echo of your rise. Now, the ones who doubted you, they've gone silent. The ones who questioned your purity, your calling, your strength, they now look at you with eyes wide open, because they cannot deny what heaven just revealed. You became the proof that darkness has an expiration date. You became the sign that divine justice is not fiction, it is reality. You became the voice for those who lost theirs in silence. And now, others are rising because of your stand. Because of your light, someone else chose to speak. Because of your strength, another soul found the courage to resist corruption. Because of your survival, those who thought they were alone now believe again. You didn't just win your battle, you opened the gates for an entire wave of justice. And you did it without becoming like them. You did it without hatred. You did it without vengeance. They expected you to come back angry, but instead, you came back holy. You didn't curse them. You blessed your own future. You didn't throw stones. You became a temple of peace. You didn't fight dirty. You let the truth fight for you. And in doing so, you became something they'll never be able to copy. They had positions, but you had presence. They had connections, but you had covenant. They had schemes, but you had sanctification. They had a system, but you had a soul sealed by fire and favor. That's the difference between counterfeit and chosen. Underscore, let it be known. You weren't just vindicated. You were crowned in public after suffering in private. You were seen in the spirit before you were ever. Acknowledged in the natural dot, and now that the smoke is cleared, they see it too. Underscore, you never had to speak their names, because God wrote yours in the book of justice. Dot. They are now a warning. You are now a witness, not just of legal retribution, but of divine reversal. Underscore, heaven didn't just clear your name. It elevated your legacy. Dot. And now your testimony is a torch. Dot. It lights the path for those still trapped in secret betrayal. That it whispers to the wounded, it's not over. They won't get away with it. The light is coming. You've become the voice they never had. You've become the evidence they never imagined would rise. You've become the storm that silence couldn't stop. Underscore, so let this truth echo through every realm. They tried to make you the example, and they succeeded. Dot, but not the way they expected. You are the example that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. You are the example that God hears whispered prayers. You are the example that no system is above divine surveillance. You are the example that even when you're underestimated, heaven has already overqualified you. Underscore, you are the example that justice still lives. Dot, and now the world knows. Underscore, soul declaration. I was never just surviving. I was being sanctified. I was never buried. I was planted. I was never broken. I was being built to last. I didn't return for revenge. I returned as revelation. Underscore, final blessing and prayer to close the video. Let's pray together. Dear Father, thank you for standing with the chosen when no one else would. Thank you for making truth louder than lies. Thank you for showing the world that integrity still wins. We lift up every soul who is still being whispered about in darkness. May they rise. May they be protected, and may justice come swiftly, not with anger, but with divine power. Let this testimony spark revival. Let this light touch every heart watching now. In the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. If this message stirred something inside your soul, like, subscribe, and share this with someone who feels alone in their battle. Comment, I was planted. If you know the enemy didn't bury you, they accidentally set you up for elevation. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning. And now, they'll never forget your name. Because, chosen one, you didn't just survive. You became sacred proof that divine justice always wins.